For more than 60 years, Kurt Russell stayed silent about the one man in Hollywood who reminded him of everything he respected: discipline, honesty, and real craft. But now, at 74, with nothing left to prove, he finally reveals the truth about Kevin Costner. And it's not what anyone expected. Long before Hollywood ever knew his name, Kurt Russell was already being shaped by two very different worlds. One world taught him discipline, and the other taught him imagination. He was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, on the 17th of March 1951, into a household that was already connected to entertainment. His father, Bing Russell, worked as a character actor. He was not a big star, but he was a hard-working man who understood how difficult the business could be. His mother, Louise Julia Russell, was a dancer who had spent years training and performing. Together, they created a home where creativity was normal, and performing was simply part of everyday life. For Kurt, this meant he grew up watching people practice, rehearse, and prepare for work they loved, but also struggled with. This shaped him quietly from the beginning. Because his parents were already involved in show business, Kurt spent a lot of time around performance spaces. He visited sets, watched his father act, and saw his mother go through dance routines. He learned what it looked like behind the camera long before he ever stood in front of it. He saw actors running lines, adjusting their expressions, or trying again and again until they got a scene right. He saw dancers working through pain, repeating the same move hundreds of times. All of this became part of his early education. Without even knowing it, he was absorbing the rhythm and language of entertainment. Even as a small child, people around him noticed something special. He had a natural confidence and a comfortable way of being around adults. He watched closely, listened carefully, and picked up on small details. When he spoke clearly. When he played with imagination. These early signs showed that he had something many performers work years to develop: a genuine presence. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel trained. It simply came from growing up in an environment where performing was normal and expressing yourself was encouraged. But despite being surrounded by entertainment, Kurt also had a regular, grounded childhood. His family did not live like wealthy Hollywood stars. They were a working-class household, and they understood the value of hard work. Money had to be earned. Nothing was guaranteed. Kurt grew up with this understanding, and it kept him humble, even as opportunities came his way. He played sports in the neighborhood, used his imagination during free time, and lived a life that was much more ordinary than people might expect. This mix of everyday life and exposure to show business created a strong balance in him. He learned that success was possible, but only if you were willing to put in the effort. Sports became an important part of his early years. Kurt enjoyed moving, running, and competing, and he especially loved baseball. Sports gave him discipline, confidence, and teamwork skills. Performing, on the other hand, allowed him to express himself in a creative way. Together, these two worlds shaped him deeply. The discipline of sports and the creativity of entertainment gave him a strong foundation that he would later use throughout his acting career. They also taught him how to control his emotions, stay focused, and handle pressure. These qualities would later become a major reason he was able to handle the unpredictable nature of Hollywood. Growing up in a working-class artistic family also meant Kurt saw the ups and downs of fame very early. He saw his father work hard for roles, and sometimes lose them. He saw the stress of auditions, the excitement of getting a job, and the disappointment when things didn't work out. He understood that success in entertainment was not simple or stable. This early understanding made him emotionally strong. It helped him develop resilience before he even knew what that word meant. He learned that fame did not protect anyone from struggle, and that staying grounded mattered more than attention. By the time Kurt began going to auditions himself, he already had a good idea of what to expect. He wasn't nervous in front of cameras because he had seen them all his life. When directors asked him to try something, he listened closely and followed instructions without hesitation. His early exposure made him feel comfortable in professional settings. He knew how adults behaved on set. He knew how to stay quiet, when to speak, and how to pay attention. These small skills helped him stand out from other children who were new to the environment. His first on-camera moments came naturally. He didn't try too hard. He didn't pretend to be someone he wasn't. He simply approached the work with honesty and curiosity. These early jobs were small, but they taught him important lessons. He learned how scenes were set up, how long filming days could be, and how teamwork was necessary to make a production succeed. He also learned that even talented people had to stay humble and hardworking. These early lessons planted deep seeds that stayed with him throughout his adult life. Being around adults for most of his early years also made him mature faster than many children his age. He listened to serious conversations, learned the meaning of responsibility, and understood the importance of treating people with respect. This early maturity later helped him play complex characters. Because he had already observed so many different personalities up close, he could understand frustration, fear, ambition, humor, and stubbornness because he had watched real people express these emotions. Many people later said that Kurt had a quiet toughness even as a boy. This did not come from being harsh or aggressive. It came from understanding life early, watching his parents work hard, and knowing the entertainment world was not easy. He developed humility because he knew fame could disappear at any moment. He developed curiosity because he wanted to understand how things worked. And he developed emotional strength because he had seen the reality of struggle long before he experienced success. There is a small parallel between Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner that can be seen even this early. Both came from grounded, hard-working families. Both learned discipline before fame. Both were shaped by environments that taught them to stay real and connected to who they were. This early grounding is one of the reasons both men later became respected figures in Hollywood. But before Hollywood could truly claim Kurt Russell, fate had one more surprise waiting for him, one that would push him into the spotlight faster than anyone expected. Most child actors dream of getting noticed, but for Kurt Russell the attention came so quickly that he barely had time to understand what it meant. The early 1960 seconds were a busy time in television and film. New shows were starting every month, and casting directors were always looking for young faces who could handle acting with confidence. Kurt was still very young when he entered this world, and because he already felt comfortable in front of adults and cameras, he stood out immediately. He did not have the fear or hesitation many children showed. Instead, he listened carefully, followed directions, and acted naturally, which made him a favorite during auditions. As his small roles increased, something unexpected happened. Walt Disney himself noticed him. Disney had a reputation for having a sharp eye for young talent, and he believed Kurt had something rare. According to many stories, Disney even said that Kurt would become one of the biggest stars of the future. Coming from a man who built an empire on imagination and entertainment, this comment carried a lot of weight. It wasn't just praise, it was almost like a prediction. For a young boy, hearing that someone as important as Walt Disney believed in him was exciting, but it also created pressure he could not fully understand at the time. Kurt soon became one of the most recognized child actors in America. He appeared in Disney films, TV shows, and various productions that reached millions of homes. People began to know his face. They expected him to be funny, charming, and confident in every role he played. Children often enjoy attention, but the kind of attention Kurt received was different. It came with expectations. It came with the idea that he had a certain image to maintain, and that he had to fit into the kind of characters Disney wanted. This recognition brought a new challenge: typecasting. Once audiences loved him as the friendly, likable kid in Disney films, producers were nervous to give him different kinds of roles. They worried that if they changed his image too much, audiences might not accept it. For a child, this meant that even though he was growing up, he was not free to explore who he was becoming. He was placed into the same kind of characters again and again. This helped him stay visible, but it also limited him. Behind all the success, Kurt faced an internal conflict. On one hand, he liked acting. He was good at it, and he liked the energy of being on set. On the other hand, he sometimes wanted a simple life, a normal life, where he could play outside without worrying about call times or scripts. While other children were at the park or spending afternoons with friends, Kurt was learning lines, rehearsing scenes, and performing in front of cameras. He was doing adult work even though he was still a child. This created a feeling of distance between him and his peers. He was living a life that most children could not imagine. During this time, he also began understanding professionalism. Adult actors treated him like a co-worker, not a child. He learned to show up on time, listen, stay focused, and take direction seriously. If he made a mistake, he had to do the scene again, even if he was tired. These early lessons taught him responsibility, but also took away parts of a normal childhood. He had to grow up quickly, and he had to behave in ways that many children his age never had to think about. The financial impact of his career was important too. Like many working child actors, Kurt's income helped the family. This was not unusual, but it added another layer of responsibility on his young shoulders. He understood that acting was not only something he did for fun, it was also a job that mattered to his family. This slowly shaped his identity. Instead of seeing himself as just a kid, he saw himself as someone who had to contribute, someone who had obligations, someone others depended on. With this pressure came the first signs of rebellion and independence. Kurt was not a troublemaker, but he had a strong sense of wanting control over his own life. The more he worked, the more he felt the weight of expectations. He started realizing that the entertainment business could be both exciting and exhausting. He wanted to enjoy acting, but he didn't want it to be the only thing that defined him. These feelings planted early seeds that later led him to make bold decisions about his future. Another important development during this time was his growing awareness of what acting really meant. He started to understand the idea of craft. Acting was not just memorizing lines. It involved emotion, timing, expression, and understanding the character. Even though he was still young, Kurt began thinking about performance as something deeper, something that required skill and intention. This early understanding helped him later transition into adult roles more successfully than many child actors. There is a subtle connection here between Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner, even though they were not linked at the time. Both built early careers based on relatability. They came across as real, approachable, and natural on screen. Audiences trusted them. They did not seem artificial or overly polished. This relatable quality became one of the main reasons both men were able to create long, respected careers. But childhood fame is never simple. Living so much of his early life on screen took an emotional toll on Kurt. He did not have the freedom to make mistakes privately. Every role added more expectations. Every scene created a stronger image that audiences believed he had to maintain. As he grew older, he sometimes felt trapped inside that image. Being seen as the Disney kid became both a blessing and a limitation. He was grateful for the opportunities, but also felt the pressure of being someone others wanted him to be. Despite all of this, Kurt kept moving forward. He worked hard, did his job well, and continued to grow as a performer. But deep inside, a question was forming. Was this truly the life he wanted, or was he simply following the path laid out for him? But just when Disney imagined his future, Kurt shocked everyone, including himself, with a decision that changed his entire destiny. Every legend has a detour, and Kurt Russell's detour almost erased him from Hollywood forever. After spending most of his childhood acting, he reached a point where he wanted something different, something that belonged only to him. Acting had been part of his life since he was young, but it wasn't something he chose freely. Baseball, however, was a choice he made with his whole heart. He loved the game. He loved the feeling of running across the field, the sound of the bat, the teamwork, and the clear rules of the sport. For the first time in his life, he felt like he could build an identity that wasn't controlled by scripts, directors, or audiences. He wanted to stop being the Disney kid and start being someone new, so he stepped away from acting and focused fully on becoming a professional baseball player. Kurt had real physical talent. He was strong, fast, and disciplined. Coaches noticed he was willing to put in the hard work that many players avoided. His competitive spirit pushed him to constantly improve. He enjoyed the training, the drills, and the structure. He liked that success in baseball depended on effort and skill, not on being chosen by someone else for a role. For the first time, he felt in control of his future. This shift changed the way he saw himself. Instead of thinking like an actor, he started thinking like an athlete. He believed that baseball could become his real career, something long-term and meaningful. There was also emotional freedom in sports. Acting had always come with pressure, expectations, and criticism. Baseball gave him space to breathe. The field felt open, and the environment felt honest. There were no bright lights, no repeated takes, no image he had to protect. He could simply play, sweat, and focus. The joy he found in sports made him feel alive in a different way. For a young man trying to break free from the shadow of childhood fame, baseball gave him comfort and excitement. It allowed him to explore who he really was without feeling watched. Leaving acting also helped him escape the label of being a former child star. He knew many young performers struggled to find new identities as they grew older. He didn't want to follow that path. He wanted to prove that he could succeed at something outside of Hollywood. Baseball gave him hope that he could build a completely different future. His confidence grew as he trained harder and moved closer to becoming a full-time professional player. But life does not always follow the path we imagine. During a game, Kurt suffered a serious shoulder injury. It happened quickly, but the impact was life-changing. The injury damaged the nerves and muscles he depended on to throw the ball. Doctors told him the truth. His baseball dreams were over. There was no simple fix, no quick recovery. The pain from the injury was physical, but the deeper pain came from knowing the career he had worked so hard for was ending before it truly started. The emotional shock hit him hard. He felt grief, frustration, and confusion. The identity he built as an athlete suddenly collapsed. He had walked away from acting to find freedom, and now that freedom had been taken from him. He didn't know where he belonged anymore. Losing baseball felt like losing a part of himself. It forced him to face questions he wasn't prepared to answer. What was he supposed to do now? Who was he without sports? With no other clear options, Kurt returned to acting. But this time, he came back with mixed emotions. Part of him felt resentment. He hadn't planned to return this way. Acting didn't feel like a choice. It felt like something he was pushed back into. At the same time, he knew he had a skill that could still support him. He understood the business, he knew how to work on set, and people remembered him. So even though he wasn't excited about it, he accepted that acting was the most realistic path forward. The injury, however, shaped him in ways that would later become strengths. It toughened him. It made him more focused and more aware of how quickly life can change. The emotional break he went through taught him how to rebuild himself. He learned how to face disappointment without falling apart. These lessons prepared him for the unpredictable world of Hollywood in a way childhood acting never had. He returned stronger, wiser, and more grounded. There is a quiet connection here between Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner. Both men were shaped by physical discipline and sports. Costner also had a deep connection to baseball, and he later brought that love into films like Bull Durham and Field of Dreams. The discipline, teamwork, and emotional honesty found in sports helped both men become better actors. It taught them how to focus, how to control their emotions, and how to stay committed even when things were difficult. This shared background helped shape the steady, grounded presence both men carried into Hollywood. When Kurt finally returned to the industry, he was no longer the young boy audiences remembered. He was a man who had experienced real loss and real growth. He came back with new depth and maturity. Hollywood noticed the change. His approach to acting was more serious, more thoughtful. He wanted to prove himself again, but this time as an adult with his own voice. His injury forced him back to acting, but it also gave him the emotional strength needed to redefine himself. Hollywood, in turn, offered him a second chance. Directors began to see him differently. He wasn't just the cheerful Disney kid anymore. He had a toughness and quiet intensity that opened the door to more complex roles. This transformation would later become the foundation of his most iconic work. He returned to Hollywood out of necessity, but what he became next, no one in the industry saw coming. Some actors chase roles, but some actors completely change the kinds of characters we see in movies. During this period of his life, Kurt Russell did both. His reinvention truly began when he met director John Carpenter. Their connection was not forced or planned. It happened naturally, and it quickly became one of the strongest creative partnerships of Kurt's career. Carpenter saw something in him that others had overlooked. He didn't see the old Disney kid. He didn't see the failed baseball player. He saw a man with depth, attitude, and potential for something darker and more interesting. Carpenter believed Kurt could lead a new kind of storytelling, one that was rough, tense, and full of emotion, without needing many words. Their first major collaboration, Escape from New York, changed everything. In this film, Kurt played Snake Plissken, a character unlike anything he had done before. Snake was tough, mysterious, and didn't care what people thought of him. He had a cold personality, a gravelly voice, and an eye patch that became one of the most recognizable parts of his look. Snake did not talk much, but every small movement, every look, and every short line carried meaning. This was the birth of a modern anti-hero, a character who wasn't fully good, but wasn't fully bad either. Audiences had never seen Kurt like this. Instead of smiling and playing safe roles, he became someone dangerous and unpredictable. It was risky, but it worked. Escape from New York showed Hollywood that Kurt Russell could do more than anyone expected. Instead of being limited by his past, he used it as fuel to create a completely new image. This role allowed him to break away from the idea of being the clean-cut, friendly face people had known before. He embraced grit, darkness, and masculinity in a way that felt honest, not forced. Carpenter helped him tap into this side of himself, and their trust in each other allowed Kurt to take bigger risks. Their next major film together, The Thing, also played a huge part in Kurt's reinvention. When it was first released, the movie was not understood or appreciated by everyone. Some critics disliked it, and it did not perform well at the box office. But over time, the film became a cultural icon. It is now considered one of the greatest science fiction horror films ever made. Kurt's performance as R.J. MacReady showed a different kind of strength. He was tough, but he was also thoughtful, scared, and constantly trying to figure out who he could trust. This mix of vulnerability and strength made the character feel real. People who re-watched the movie later began to see how powerful his acting truly was. These films helped Kurt fully separate from his childhood image. He was no longer remembered as a young boy performing in Disney movies. Instead, he became known as a man who could carry intense, serious films. He stepped into the shadows, explored darker emotions, and embraced characters that were complicated. This became a major turning point in how audiences saw him. His fan base shifted too. People who loved cult classics, dark science fiction, and action films started to admire him. A new kind of fandom grew around him, fans who appreciated his toughness, humor, and quiet intensity. Part of what made Kurt's transformation work so well was his commitment to authenticity. He did not want to pretend to be tough. He wanted to feel tough. He performed many of his own stunts, pushed his physical limits, and took roles that required real effort. His performances were not flashy. Instead, they were controlled, careful, and filled with small details. His craft grew deeper. He learned how to use silence in powerful ways. He learned how to communicate emotion with only his eyes or body language. He understood the importance of timing and how a slow moment or a pause could change the meaning of a scene. His new style was different from Kevin Costner's clean-cut hero image. Costner often played characters who were brave, calm, and morally centered. His heroes were based on honesty and vulnerability, while Kurt's new characters lived in gray areas. They were flawed, rough, and secretive. But despite their differences, both men created characters that audiences cared about. Their performances felt real because they both believed in emotional honesty, even if they expressed it in different ways. This connection would become clearer later in their careers, especially when discussing their approach to acting and storytelling. Hollywood had mixed reactions to Kurt's new direction. Some people respected him for taking risks and breaking away from the predictable path of a former child actor. Others weren't sure what to make of him. He was no longer easy to categorize. He wasn't the typical action star, and he wasn't a traditional dramatic actor either. He had created his own space somewhere between intense action and emotional depth. This confusion didn't bother him. In fact, it motivated him. He wanted to prove that reinvention was possible, and that he could handle roles with complexity and weight. The partnership between Carpenter and Russell became a transformation engine for Kurt. They trusted each other completely. Carpenter knew how to bring out Kurt's strongest qualities, and Kurt delivered performances that matched the director's vision. Their teamwork helped shape some of the most memorable characters in film history. Together, they explored themes of survival, identity, fear, and courage in ways that broke the rules of traditional Hollywood storytelling. As Kurt continued exploring these roles, his confidence grew. He was discovering parts of himself he didn't know existed. He was no longer working to escape his past. He was building a new future. These years turned him into a stronger actor, a more mature person, and someone who understood the deeper meaning of his craft. He had stepped into a world of challenge and creativity, and he was thriving. But after conquering the shadows of action cinema, Kurt was about to reveal a softer, surprising side, one that would change his public image forever. Hollywood loves to put actors in boxes, but Kurt Russell kept breaking every box they handed him. After proving himself in dark, gritty roles with John Carpenter, many people expected him to stay in that lane forever. But Kurt had no interest in repeating himself. He wanted to grow, explore, and challenge the image people had formed of him. This desire to stretch his talent led him into comedy, romance, drama, and even roles that mixed humor and danger in surprising ways. Instead of being predictable, he became one of the few actors who could jump from one style to another without losing credibility. One of the earliest examples of this flexibility was Big Trouble in Little China. In this film, Kurt played Jack Burton, a loud, confident truck driver who thinks he is the hero, but often finds himself confused and out of his depth. The role allowed Kurt to show his comedic instincts in a way audiences had not seen before. He delivered funny lines with perfect timing, used his body language to create humor, and brought a playful energy that balanced the film's action and fantasy elements. Many people were shocked to see how naturally he handled comedy. It proved that beneath the tough exterior he had built with roles like Snake Plissken, Kurt also had a light-hearted, humorous side waiting to be explored. Overboard pushed that side even further. Starring alongside Goldie Hawn, Kurt showed a softer, more romantic part of himself. Their on-screen chemistry felt real because their off-screen relationship was also growing at the time. This connection brought warmth and sincerity to the film. Kurt's character was charming, caring, and funny, and he displayed a kind of emotional openness that surprised audiences who only knew him from action and thriller roles. The movie became a classic not because of special effects or high drama, but because the relationship between Kurt and Goldie felt natural and believable. It showed viewers that he could lead a romantic comedy with the same strength he brought to darker roles. Then came Tombstone, a film that allowed Kurt to tap into the spirit of old Western heroes. His portrayal of Wyatt Earp gave him the chance to show quiet leadership, moral strength, and emotional depth. Western characters often rely on subtle looks and controlled expression, and Kurt handled these moments with confidence. He didn't need loud speeches to make an impact. His calm presence carried authority. Fans of the genre still remember his performance as one of the finest of that era, and it proved that he could command a scene without needing humor or action. It was another turning point in his career, showing that he was not limited to modern settings or specific personalities. His role in Miracle added yet another layer to his range. Playing Herb Brooks, the coach of the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team, Kurt delivered one of the strongest dramatic performances of his career. Instead of shouting or showing heavy emotion, he used restraint. His character was strict, serious, and deeply committed to his players, and Kurt expressed this through controlled voice, strong posture, and sharp focus. Many people praised his performance because it felt real, not overly dramatic but honest. He portrayed a man under pressure, a man with high expectations, and a man who believed in discipline. The film reminded audiences that Kurt could deliver powerful drama with quiet intensity. Even when he stepped into villainous or morally complex roles, he continued to surprise people. In Death Proof, he played Stuntman Mike, a character who seemed charming on the surface but hid dark intentions. Kurt made the character unsettling without making him unrealistic. His smile, his tone, and his small gestures all hinted at something dangerous underneath. In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he played Ego, a villain who seemed kind and welcoming at first, but later revealed his true nature. The emotional depth he gave the character made the twist more powerful. These roles showed that he could play the bad guy without becoming cartoonish or exaggerated. He brought humanity to characters who made terrible choices, which made them more interesting. Across all these genres and roles, one thing remained consistent: Kurt Russell's sincerity. Whether he was making people laugh, cry, or feel afraid, he always approached his characters with honesty. His timing, both comedic and dramatic, was sharp. His emotional reactions felt natural, not forced. And he carried a grounded warmth that made audiences feel connected to him. This connection helped people develop a deep attachment to him over the years. Viewers trusted him because he always gave his full effort, no matter what kind of film he was making. Directors and producers also respected him for this reason. He became known as someone who was adaptable, reliable, and easy to work with. He understood the rhythm of scenes, respected everyone on set, and delivered consistent performances. His willingness to step outside his comfort zone earned him long-term admiration in Hollywood. He didn't reinvent himself because he had to. He reinvented himself because he wanted to grow. He wasn't running away from his past roles. He was expanding his abilities and proving that he could handle any challenge. This broad range of work also highlights a quiet connection with Kevin Costner. While Costner often played cleaner, steadier heroes, he too explored a variety of genres, including romance, westerns, drama, and even sports films. Both men built careers based on relatability and emotional truth. They didn't rely on flashy techniques. They relied on sincerity and strong storytelling. Kurt's ability to shift from action to comedy, from villain to romantic partner, and from historical figure to sci-fi character made him a true genre shapeshifter. This talent placed him in a rare group of actors who could fit into almost any film world. As Kurt continued to take on new and different roles, it became clear that he was not just an action star, a dramatic actor, or a comedian. He was all of these at once. His flexibility kept his career alive for decades and allowed him to reach new audiences with each era of his life. Fans who liked him in comedies later grew to appreciate him in dramas. People who admired his action roles later discovered his romantic or emotional performances, but while the world celebrated the actor, the man behind the roles was undergoing a transformation even more profound. Behind every Hollywood legend is a private world, and in Kurt Russell's case, that world was not built on fame or success, it was built on devotion. Before he became part of one of Hollywood's most beloved couples, Kurt experienced a more traditional chapter in his personal life. He married actress Susan Hubley in 1979, during a time when he was finding his way as an adult actor. Their relationship gave him early stability, something he needed after years of constantly shifting between acting and baseball dreams. It was a period when he wanted a grounded life and a sense of direction outside of work. That same year, Kurt and Susan welcomed their son, Boston Russell. Becoming a father gave Kurt a new purpose. He had been working since he was a child, but now he felt a deeper motivation. Providing for a family, raising a child, and being present in his son's life reshaped his priorities. Boston's arrival made Kurt more thoughtful and more aware of what truly mattered. Even though he continued acting, his approach to life slowly shifted. He began thinking more about balance and stability, not just career achievements. However, not all relationships last forever, even when they begin with love and hope. Kurt and Susan divorced in 1983. The separation brought emotional challenges, but it also marked an important moment of growth for Kurt. Instead of letting the divorce define him, he approached it with maturity and respect. He remained involved in Boston's life and made sure their family stayed peaceful. This experience taught him about patience, communication, and the importance of handling personal matters privately and calmly. These qualities later became key to his long-term happiness. After the divorce, Kurt reconnected with someone who would forever change the course of his life, Goldie Hawn. They had first met briefly years earlier while working on a movie, but it wasn't until they reunited on the set of Swing Shift that they discovered a deeper connection. Their chemistry was immediate, natural, and warm. They shared humor, playfulness, and a respect for each other's individuality. Their relationship did not feel like a Hollywood performance. It felt real, balanced, and grounded. As their bond grew stronger, they soon became partners in every sense of the word. In 1986, Kurt and Goldie welcomed their son Wyatt Russell. Raising a child together allowed their relationship to deepen even further. Wyatt grew up surrounded by support, love, and encouragement, and he later followed in his parents' footsteps by entering the entertainment world. Kurt's involvement in raising Wyatt showed a softer, more patient side of him. He was present, hands-on, and dedicated, shaping a family life that was steady and full of joy. Kurt also became an important figure in the lives of Goldie's children from her previous marriage, Kate and Oliver Hudson. They have always spoken about Kurt with love and appreciation, calling him a true father figure. This blended family grew closer over the years, supported by shared values and consistent communication. Their home was built on trust, honesty, and humor. Kurt treated Goldie's children as his own, and this generosity created a strong family bond that felt complete and genuine. One of the main reasons their family worked so well was their shared values. Kurt and Goldie agreed on the importance of privacy. Even though they were famous, they kept their personal lives away from public drama. They believed in discipline, not in strict rules, but in teaching responsibility and respect. They also believed in joy, celebrating small moments, laughing together, and keeping life simple even when living in the spotlight. These values shaped their children and kept the family grounded. As their careers grew, Kurt and Goldie also built a life across multiple homes. They owned properties in places like Colorado, Vancouver, Manhattan, and Palm Desert. Each home reflected something different about their personalities. Colorado gave them nature and peace. Vancouver offered privacy during filming seasons. Manhattan brought culture and energy. Palm Desert offered warmth and relaxation. These homes weren't status symbols, they were spaces where the family could be together, recharge, and enjoy life without pressure. Their choices reflected a life philosophy built on comfort, balance, and gratitude. Family softened Kurt in many ways. The tough action star that audiences knew on screen was also a warm, patient, and thoughtful man at home. Being a father changed how he approached roles. He became more selective about the projects he took, often choosing films that allowed him enough time to spend with Goldie and the children. He didn't chase fame. He didn't need to compete with younger actors. He cared more about creating a stable home environment than constantly being in the spotlight. His priorities shifted from career-driven choices to life-driven choices. Kurt also practiced quiet forms of philanthropy. He did not seek attention for his generosity, but he gave his time, support, and resources to causes he believed in. Whether helping communities or supporting charities, he always acted with humility. He also showed loyalty to friends and co-workers. People who worked with him often said he made them feel respected and appreciated. His emotional intelligence helped him build strong relationships both at home and on set. This mix of kindness and confidence made him someone others naturally trusted. This part of his life also mirrors Kevin Costner's journey in many ways. Costner, too, grew as a father and became more grounded through his family relationships. Both men learned that the real measure of life is not fame or awards, but the love and stability they provide to the people around them. Their understanding of responsibility, discipline, and emotional connection helped shape their careers and made them respected figures in Hollywood. As Kurt mastered the art of living, not just acting, another Hollywood titan was walking a parallel path, one Kurt would later speak of with rare honesty. After 6 decades in Hollywood, Kurt Russell is finally saying the words fans never expected to hear. At 74, he has reached a point in his life where honesty feels more like a responsibility than a choice. When he talks about Kevin Costner, he doesn't speak like someone offering casual compliments. He speaks with the calm confidence of a man who has seen the industry from every angle and understands what true talent looks like. Russell explains that Costner possesses something rare, something that cannot be faked, trained, or borrowed. He calls it authenticity, the ability to make a character feel real from the inside out. Kurt says that one of the first things you notice about Costner is his sense of timing. Whether he is delivering a quiet, emotional moment or a simple line of dialogue, he always knows how long to pause, how deeply to breathe, and how much emotion to allow through. This rhythm makes his performances believable. Russell points out that many actors try to show emotion by exaggerating, but Costner does the opposite. He controls it, shapes it, and lets it appear naturally. This level of restraint is extremely difficult, yet Costner makes it look effortless. Another quality Kurt admires is Costner's emotional truth. Instead of wearing his emotions loudly, Costner lets audiences discover them slowly, which keeps viewers engaged. Kurt recognizes this because he has spent years studying actors, acting styles, and what makes a performance meaningful. He says that Costner has a gift for honesty on screen. The audience doesn't feel like they are watching an actor, they feel like they are watching a person who really exists. Kurt also talks about Costner's preparation. He says Costner approaches each project as if it were the most important one of his life. He studies, he rehearses, and he gives full attention to every detail. This kind of preparation is not common in Hollywood, especially for actors who have already achieved success. Yet, Costner never stops working. His humility plays a big role here. Even after decades of fame, he stays grounded. He treats everyone on set with respect and kindness. Russell has seen enough sets and enough egos to know how rare this is. One of the comments that surprised many people was when Kurt said that Costner lives in the character. He meant that Costner doesn't just play a role, he becomes part of it. Everything from his body language to his voice changes in subtle ways that make the character authentic. This is not about pretending. It is about slipping into another life so completely that the audience forgets an actor is involved at all. When Kurt compares their careers, he does so with admiration, not competition. He notes that both he and Costner built careers across many genres: action, drama, romance, westerns, and even lighter roles. But he emphasizes that Costner has a natural leadership quality on screen. In movies like Dances with Wolves, Field of Dreams, and Open Range, Costner carries a calm strength that audiences trust. Kurt sees this as a form of consistency, another rare trait in Hollywood. Behind the scenes, the two men shared several interactions over the years. They crossed paths on sets, at events, and during industry conversations. Kurt always noticed that Costner stayed focused, even when the environment around him was chaotic. Costner kept his mood steady, treated people kindly, and avoided unnecessary drama. These small behaviors told Kurt everything he needed to know about his character. Respect developed between them, not because they were similar, but because both recognized the other's dedication. Kurt also talks about a major difference between actors who rely on ego and those guided by integrity. Ego-driven actors want attention and validation. They often try to dominate scenes or conversations. But actors with integrity, like Costner, focus on the story first. They want to serve the film, not themselves. Kurt believes Costner belongs to the second group, a storyteller before anything else. This kind of discipline keeps an actor's career strong for decades. It also makes working with them easier and more inspiring. People often ask Kurt why he chose to speak so openly now. At 74, he feels he has nothing to prove. He also believes that giving credit where it is due matters more as you grow older. He has watched many actors come and go. Some disappeared quickly because they relied on trends. Others stayed because they built their careers on sincerity and hard work. Costner belongs to the second category, and Kurt felt it was time to express that openly. He wanted fans to understand that Costner's success didn't come from hype. It came from steady effort, discipline, and real connection with audiences. His reflections also reveal something deeper about Kurt himself. When he praises Costner for loyalty, humility, and emotional truth, he is also speaking about values he personally admires and tries to live by. The qualities he sees in Costner reflect the qualities he respects in people and in the craft of acting. In some ways, Kurt's words about Costner tell us more about his own philosophy than about Costner's alone. Kurt also believes their careers share a larger message. He says that success in Hollywood may start with talent, but it lasts only when matched with character. Costner's long career, like Kurt's, proves that staying genuine matters more than chasing trends. It shows that storytelling works best when rooted in real emotion and real effort. These ideas create a universal lesson, not just for actors, but for anyone who wants to build a meaningful life. Loyalty matters, hard work matters, and staying grounded matters. As he reflects on everything he has experienced, Kurt acknowledges that admiration between equals is rare in Hollywood. Most of the time, competition overshadows respect, but his respect for Costner is clear and honest. He sees him as a man who has carried himself with dignity, who has stayed true to his craft, and who has earned every success through authenticity. But as Kurt Russell looks back on his life and Costner's, one final question lingers, one only time can answer.